Like, I think we should start with mediation. And why do you believe that so many people just believe they have to lawyer up and that mediation is something that they don't believe they're going to be able to do?
It's typically one of two reasons or both. Now, the first is fear. They're going into this process that they don't know anything about, and they're terrified that they're going to screw up, they're going to miss something, and a lawyer is going to be able to protect them. And quite honestly, that is true in a lot of cases, right? You want, before you sign off on any agreement about a parenting plan, by all means, have a lawyer look it over. Make sure your ass is covered, so to speak. But the other reason is sometimes, and I hear this a lot, I want to get a bulldog attorney, that they call it, to get my spouse or to get my ex. And that's the wrong reason to do it. Because to your point, that's not going to accomplish anything positive for your child. And even if you get that attorney that does that and is really good at that, and you win in court, what do you have to show for it? You've got a lot of trauma to show for it. You've got a lot of money that you're now in the hole with, because that's thousands of dollars. You're starting at 10 grand in a custody battle, and it's probably going to be higher. I spent 30. And some of these cases are even higher than that, depending on who your lawyer is. So for what? Why are you doing this? Check yourself and ask yourself those questions and see if it's great if you want to get an attorney, but let's try this first. And then if it doesn't work, you've got that option.
Yeah, I say you always need to have a consulting attorney, throughout the mediation process as you get to the agreement and you're making headway and you're agreeing at portions of it. Yeah, you take the portions you've agreed on, you get a consulting attorney, make sure that, that's going to be good in court, work in your hearing. And, but you don't have to spend a lot of money on that. And I also believe that you have to hire the right attorney, because I know that I did not hire the right attorney to be my consulting attorney. I knew very specifically what I wanted and that what we were wanting, because we were in mediation, we come to an agreement and then they start tearing it apart. I'm like, no, that's not what I want you to do. I just want you to dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that it's like legal, but don't start trying to convince me that I can like go get more and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's in their benefit.
Absolutely. And so real quick, I just remembered something I wanted to mention, the Byron Katie work. And one offshoot of that I use in my process when parents are stuck and they can't see the other person's point of view is what's lacking in this situation is empathy, right? And I think you have to get there somehow, if it's possible. Some people can't go there, but you've got to be able to see put yourself in the other parent's shoes before we're going to make any real progress. So one of the questions I ask them individually, so that they don't feel guarded when they're answering this question with me, just so they can see themselves what's going on, is in what way is the other parent, do you feel self-conscious about their role as a parent? So it requires them to put themselves in the other parent's shoes in a state of vulnerability. And the second question, which is a great follow-up question to that, is in what way am I contributing to this conflict? And I will tell you 9 times out of 10, the answer to that second question is taking advantage of the weakness of the other parent that they named in the first question.
That's
really important.
Yeah, so interesting. And you when you live with people for a long time, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities, and once again you go back to the sticking it to them, you're trying to poke them where it hurts, and that is not going to be what's good for the kids. And the other thing is, once you like quote unquote win in court, if you decide to go into like a litigation contentious, you still need to co-parent with this individual moving forward. And so that like massive amount of contentious conversations and communication, it rolls over, into the co-parenting environment. And, the kids don't deserve that. I remember sitting at a table with a friend and, her son was home. He was in high school. And I think there was like a changing of the guards night. The son was supposed to go to dad's and dad did come pick him up. Like I said, he was in high school, but he didn't have his license. And, the banter was like, what does dad think he's doing? He's supposed to figure out the transportation. I'm not supposed to get up. You know what? Just get up and drive the child to the dad's house. Why does the child need to hear all the things that the dad's not doing right? So, because if you want to have that conversation, it's okay. You pick up the phone later. Hey, I dropped so-and-so off, but I want to remind you next time that when we do change houses, we had made it a point that it was the responsibility of the other parent to make sure they have transportation. A little bit of the Biff method, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Biff method, right. My daughter, she's got some some wisdom, and she always has. And when about 16 years old, when we were still sort of jostling back and forth, with fighting for time with her, what you don't want to do is use your kid as a messenger.
No.
And that's what was happening. We were both doing it. And my daughter, to her credit, just put up a boundary and said, I'm not doing that anymore. You guys work out your own shit. I'm not doing that anymore. So leave me out of it. Tell me when it's done and we can go from there. I'm like, wow. I mean, your kids can teach you stuff.
Oh, they do. Said some. We were like on speakerphone with like my son and my ex and myself, and we were having a conversation. And I think I said something, and I thought it was very direct. And my son looks at me. He's like, "Mom, you're being very passive aggressive." And I'm like, I am. And like, I immediately had to rethink what I said. I was like, okay, because I just thought I was being direct. He's like, nope, that was very passive. And then I thanked him later because I rethought about it. And I really appreciate the fact that you brought that to my attention. And you're right. Thinking back through what came out of my mouth, I could see how that might be construed as being passive aggressive. And I appreciate it because I don't want to be that way. That's not how I want to communicate at all. And he smiled, like he just had a grin ear to ear. Like he just felt so good about himself and the fact that, I was open to the constructive criticism, and how to do things better. Because I only want the kids to hear positive communication, healthy communication. So when I stepped into mediation, I had no idea what I was doing. Like I had no idea what I was supposed to prepare. I just showed up. And I would say 99% of people just show up. So let's talk about day one. What is your expectation? Or what is your wish for how people arrive into mediation?
I make it clear what my role is from that first session, the beginning of it, and we'll go over the housekeeping, so to speak. And I'll say, look, I'm not here to decide who's right and wrong. I am a neutral party, and I am not a judge or a magistrate. So if you have any intentions of proving to me by showing me evidence, you've got copies of text messages and emails, I don't want to see them. Not my role. So what we're doing today is I just want to hear your story, why you're here. And if you want to go into a little history, that's fine, because sometimes it's helpful. But if we get bogged down in that, then I'll move us on from that. But let's just start off getting to know why we're here. But if there's kids involved, which is 90% of my cases, then we're going to focus some time in the beginning on, tell me about your kid, because I want that to be the focus from the get-go. So I want each of them to chime in on how their kid is doing, by their observations, what their kids' likes and dislikes are, what kind of kid are they? Are they more reserved? Are they outgoing? Are they doing well in school? Do they have any health issues? Get the focus on the kid. And sometimes that'll just bring a smile to their faces because they get to share about their kid, and that's the focus. And I'll even ask them for a picture of their kid. And if things are going off the rails halfway through the session, I'll pop a picture of the kid up on the screen and say, wait a minute. You're forgetting where your focus is supposed to be. It's right here. Act like your kid's in the room right now. Are you going to say that kind of thing now? And, it's just a check. It's a reality check.